Hey Marcus, it's really nice sitting with you and getting to meet you for the first time. Well, we did meet at the Frenchie Bowl,
Yep,
right?
yep, yeah, we sure did. We
Al
sure did.
introduced us.
Yep.
Yeah. So for all y'all that don't know who this is Marcus Height. He is super spoiled Frenchies. He's also one of the partners in the Frenchie Bowl. He has, one of the Velvets, Blackjack, which is one of the only 6-panel healthcare dogs. We're here to just discuss some things that have been going on that we've all seen on the internet and get behind it and see what's going on.
For sure, for sure.
So, Marcus, how did you get started with the Frenchie Bowl?
So I'm actually the founder of Frenchie Bowl. Frenchie Bowl was kind of an idea that I've been sitting on for a few years. Well, I say a few years. I say a couple years, really. I wanted to throw a show when I first got into it because I'm a videographer and a photographer for the shows. Mostly, probably like 85% of the shows in Texas I film or shoot. So there was always certain things that I would see behind the scenes, and me being a Frenchie breeder, I always felt like the French Bulldog kind of got shorted in the shows. Never really see a French Bulldog win Best in Show, or they would have stack offs. You wouldn't really see a French Bulldog win a stack off. So me being a Frenchie owner, I just thought it would be cool to have an all Frenchie based show. Like, what if we gave Frenchies an actual chance to win Best in Show or a chance to win the stack off? So the only way we could do it was to do an all Frenchie show. So at the time, I presented the idea to, I had two partners I was dealing with. I presented the idea to two of them, and both of them were basically like, nah, that's crazy. Like, there's no way we're gonna do an all Frenchie show, fill that many booths, get that many people. Because I was thinking big from the beginning. I wasn't thinking a small show. I was kind of thinking this is gonna be something big. They just really weren't seeing my vision. So, for certain reasons, I'm glad it didn't happen, but I kind of just kept it in the vault. A year or two goes by, I start breeding. I'm still thinking about the show, and then that's when I meet Al. Me and Al, which is Exquisite Frenchies down in Corpus. I meet Al basically going through a situation where we were gonna co-own a dog together. Me and Al were gonna own 33% of a dog with a third person. Me and Al ended up paying the money for the dog, and then like months went by. We never received pictures, or we couldn't receive videos. We were asking for these things and weren't receiving them. So long story short, it came to where me and Al started conversating and became good friends, and then found out that that person basically was scamming us, and the dog didn't exist, or we didn't know if the dog existed at that point at all. So we started doing a little bit of investigation, and come to find out she didn't have the dog. She was scamming us. So Al took a loss. I took a loss at that point. I ended up hitting the person up. I got my refund back on my part, but Al didn't, and I felt bad for him. So Al was just getting started, and he didn't really know anybody. He was from Boston, so he's from up north. He's down here in Texas now. So me just being me, I was just like, man, I felt bad for the dude, and we ended up having conversations. We started talking. Next thing you know, we're good friends. So he was real hungry. He was in the game. He was hungry. He wanted to do whatever he could to get to the next level. So I was like, I saw his passion. So I was like, I started telling him about shows. We start traveling together. We become good friends. At that point, I get comfortable enough to where I feel like maybe this Frenchie Bowl idea that I've been sitting on, Al might be the right person to propose it to. So after, months go by and me sitting on it, I just said, hey, I'm going to shoot the idea to Al. Shot the idea to Al, and it was no hesitation as to the first two people that I presented the idea to were just like, no, so far-fetched. Al was just right away like, it can happen, bro. Like, what do you want to do? And I at that point was the first point that I felt like somebody really believed in my vision. So I was like, if you're down to do it, me and you can do it together. So let's be partners, and we'll go 50-50 in the show. And
So how did Alex and George Mosley get involved?
So Alex and George Mosley got involved because me coming from where I come from, the music perspective, I just felt like together we can do a lot more than individually, you know. Al was just a breeder, just getting started. I had, you know, a little bit of grit in the game, but I wasn't just out there like that. So I felt like, you know, let's get two people that have either motion or well respected in the game, you know. And we were picky about these people. These weren't people that we just, you know, just said, oh yeah, let him join and let him join. These were people, because this is a big thing to us, you know. So
these are people that already had reputations.
Already had reputations
And trust.
you know. So, and then, like I told you earlier, I'm a videographer and photographer. Well, I'm from Houston, so Al mentioned Alex at first because we had seen him. Matter of fact, we saw him at Off the Leash show.
And at that time, he was going really crazy
He was
because
going
of all
crazy.
his dogs.
He had Microsoft at the time, and he was going bananas. So I felt like he had good motion. He was a businessman. He was in a suit when I saw him, and I respected that. I respected his character. I respected his, you know, his ways, and I just thought when Al presented him, I felt, yeah, you know what? I think he can work. So we presented it to Alex. Alex was like, yeah, let's do it. We brought Alex on, and then
How did you meet George?
So I met George in the past, like at shows, just here and there, just kind of bumping into him. I always, like I told you, the video and photo stuff, I admired what George had going on because
With the My Breeder's Life?
George had My Breeder's Life. And me being the video man with the shows and then seeing what he had going on, I was like, man, they got, you know, what I respected what they were doing, really. So I would always see them at shows. He would be there with his team. He had somebody shooting for My Breeder's Life at the time, but we would just see each other around. And then after we settled down with three of us, I told Al, man, I feel like three of us is cool, but I feel like we can really take this to the next level. Let's add a fourth person. So we sat on it for a while, and then Al was like, you know, what about George Mosley? I was like, man, George might be good. You know, George would probably be real good.
Because he had a lot of the micros and stuff at that time. He was doing a lot.
And he had a lot of motion, and not only that, but, you know, from what as the person I had known him for at the time, he was solid. You know, he was a good guy. I always saw him at shows. He was networking, so he always had, you know, the My Breeder's Life things going. So I just thought it was good.
And with the first Frenchie Bowl, it was great, right?
Yeah, with the first Frenchie Bowl was great. That worked out good. So, and at that time, so when we went through the first Frenchie Bowl, I want to make it clear because there's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about. You know, people see these shows, they go to these shows and they just see the ultimate finish. You know, they don't really see the stuff behind the light, and really it's nobody's business. But where we're at today,
We're having to make it somebody's business.
we got to make it somebody's business because I just want to clear my side of it to understand. So there was two things at the first Frenchie Bowl. One thing for sure that I felt like that we needed to better, and that was a lot of the feedback we were getting, was the cleanup crew. The cleanup crew was left up to George last year. We all had jobs. We're a team, so you do this, you do that. You know, it was his job. He had the cleaning crew covered. You know, the day of the show, we were told that the cleaning crew wasn't going to be there. So that put us in a bad situation, like really just overall, because the capacity of this show, the caliber of this show was like, we wanted the best. We want the best experience for these people. We don't want people to have to be walking around worried about, you know, stuff on the ground that they shouldn't be. And we thought that was, why tell us the day of? You know, that was something big that was very important to us that we thought should have been addressed, and we could have found a backup, you know, plan to it. But that probably was the first one. And then there was another situation too in the first Frenchie Bowl that we basically worked. We bought the concession out because at the venue that we use, you have to actually buy the concession out to even be able to sell food.
And the bar.
And the bar. So we bought the concession out. We ended up going through one of his plugs or his people for the food. and where we found the numbers that came out in the end, we just feel like we're far-fetched from what we know, because the line was.
And then this year, with your mom running it, you were able to validate that and verify
We were
it.
able to verify that. So what we did this year is my mom actually bought the concession out from us, and we sold her, and we said, you know what? We're going to compare last year to this year's and see how far off it was. And there was less. I don't think that the line was as crazy as it was last year, because there's a lot of people this year just with shows in general that I think are cautious. Shows kind of been not as crazy as this year, but then there's been the respiratory virus. It's just been a lot of stuff going on to where that have been making people as cautious. That Frenchie Bowl was definitely, there was more people, but I don't know if there was more boost, but I don't know about the public. The line was crazy last year. The line wasn't as crazy this year, and we made twice as much. So when we compare it, it just kind of doesn't add up, you know.
So there was a time that y'all had bought a van. How did that work out?
Yeah, there was a van. So the My Breeders Life van that everybody sees posted with
And
the
whose idea was
sponsors
that
on it.
originally?
So that was actually Al and I's idea originally. Frenchie Bowl. George had a show in Tampa last year, and we actually just wanted to support because we were partners in Frenchie Bowl, and we had brought George on. Just the people we are, you know. Al said, let's go support his show in Tampa. So we said, all right, let's make a trip out of it. Al and I had already talked about getting a Sprinter van. So we said, you know what? Georgia show's in Tampa. Let's rent a Sprinter. We can see how we like it, and then we'll see if we want to buy one or not. We rent the Sprinter van. We go to Tampa. Mind you, Frenchie Bowl paid for the gas, the rooms, all of that to get us there, you know. And I was filming on top of that. But we go all together. We get the van. We make there. We support his show, and then we get back. Not even like 2 weeks later, George has the van. And I was just kind of caught off guard by it, because I was like, the Sprinter van, where did this come about? Like, me and Al just discussed this, you know. So all of a sudden now he has a van, and he's basically wanting to do the same thing that Al and I talked about. So at the time, Al reached out to me, and Al was kind of in his feelings about it, you know, because Al was kind of upset that we had put a lot of thought into that, and then somebody just comes and scoops the idea and then runs away with it. Our idea was basically to have the van, have it Frenchie Bowl, basically everything that he has done to it, but basically all geared towards Frenchie Bowl instead of geared towards one person. So what happened is George ended up paying for the van itself, and came to me, and I said, well, we can do this easy. You know, we got Frenchie Bowl going on. We got a lot of people that follow us. Let's do it like this. Let's basically sell sponsor spots for the windows. It made perfect sense to where we could sell spots. So we sold spots for the windows to basically reimburse George for what he paid for the van. With sponsors alone, I know we made over what George paid for the van. So we were already plus right there. Next thing you know, like a couple weeks go by, maybe 3 or 4 weeks go by, and George says he's gonna go drop the van off to get looked at, to get some work done. And I'm not really worried about it. You know, me and him are good friends at this time, so I'm just like, cool, I trust him, you know. I'm leaving it in his hands.
And a lot of money is being spread around because of the Frenchie Bowl and stuff, so of course you don't have any questions.
Exactly. Money's being here, money's being sent there, you know, we're sending money there. So it's like you said, no question. We're not doubting anything. Anything anybody said at that point in time was being taken as okay.
And he's already established.
Established. With us, we're partners.
And in the whole industry.
In the industry. And I personally have never heard anything till this point, that I've occurred, that's what occurred now. Until this has occurred, I've never heard any of the negative stuff. I always heard positive stuff. From my view, I always saw positive stuff. So I never even thought to even think anything like that.
Or question it.
But then what comes up is, like you said, going back to the van, that's our idea, and it gets took. So at that point, Al's in Corpus, because I'm like, hey, should we present the deal to Al, because Al's one of the partners, so should we present it to him and have him part of the van as well? And he was okay with that. George was okay with that. He was like, yeah, let's present it to him. But when we presented it to Al, I think Al was more on a personal upset about the whole situation. He was like, nah, I'm in Corpus. Y'all are in Houston. It's cool. I don't really want nothing to do with the van. At that point, when we were getting the sponsors, I feel like the least you could have done was left Al's logo on the van.
Because he's involved in the Frenchie Bowl.
Because he's
and y'all are
involved
partners.
with the Frenchie Bowl. He's partners. And honestly, in reality, this was his idea. It's half of his idea. I brought it up, but me and Al sat there and talked about these details together. The things that we talked about, basically 3 weeks later when he's calling me, he's showing me pictures, and it's got the whole My Breeder's Life design, the color scheme. And I was like, man, after all my sponsors paid for all this, and I got work and busted my tail to get a bunch of this done, like, I just don't feel like it's right that you pick the color scheme, you're doing the whole thing, My Breeder's Life. Nothing about Super Spoiled Frenchies was on there besides my logo on the side of that van, basically making me look like a sponsor. When in reality, I paid for half of that van,
Using your sponsorships through the Frenchie Bowl.
Using my sponsorships.
And Al's sponsorships.
And even Al had sponsorships for that van, But after the sponsorships came, there was still other work that needed to be done for the van. There was still other things that needed to be done.
Because the van was it, like, how did he get it?
Basically, the van came from an auction. So there was things that, it was an older van. We just needed to get it right, basically. Interior, exterior, little things. So there was more money that we were going to need to spend on top of that. So we said, okay, let's continue doing the same thing with the sponsors, and then we pay out of pocket to pay the difference. Well, when certain things came around, when it was whatever it was, whether it was a Cadillac converter or a tire or anything, I would just, again, say, okay, whatever it is, just write it down and we'll pay for it later, I always trusted him. I never questioned nothing on the situation. And then down the line, probably halfway through us owning the van, when the van's almost complete, there's certain things that come up where he tells me, okay, well, I paid this person this and I paid this person that, so you owe me for half of it. And I'm like, you never send me no receipts. You never send me nothing. You never told me about this stuff. You know what I mean? So I start the red flag comes up at that point. I start kind of paying attention to the situation. When things started unraveling, at that point, it was just downhill from there. When I started noticing that stuff was funny with that van, whether it was the sponsors or me putting the money, it got to a point where I just said, you know what? I don't even want nothing to do with the van no more. You could have the van, totally. And he was like, what do you mean, have the van? How are you giving me the van? I'm like, well, my sponsors, my work, my personal money, half of that has paid for half of that van. He's like, no, you didn't pay for nothing out of my pocket, which technically, yeah, it wasn't out of my pocket, but it's still my sponsors that paid for half of that van,
Because at the end of the day, the Frenchie Bowl is who? Who's involved in it? Who's on the contracts?
Yeah, it's Al and I.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yeah.
So those are actually your sponsors.
Those were actually our sponsors, and those were sponsors that we got, outside of Frenchie Bowl. So yes, he did get sponsors as well, but a lot of the sponsors, like you said, that I got were people that were from Frenchie Bowl that were saying, okay, y'all are doing this, whatever y'all do for Frenchie Bowl, we want to be a part of it, whether it's sponsorship, whether anything to do with promotion, and it has to do with Frenchie Bowl.
And the van was at the Frenchie Bowl, the first Frenchie Bowl.
And that was a big perception
at the very
too.
front when you first walked in the door.
At the very front, and that was another perception too, to make it look like, I felt like towards the end, it got to shifting to where it was My Breeder's Life was looking like it was putting on Frenchie Bowl. And I wasn't trying to take that from him, but I just wanted it to be clear to anybody's eye that that's not what what it is. It's not My Breeder's Life that puts on Frenchie Bowl. It's really exquisite Frenchies, super spoiled Frenchies, and we're in partnership with Mosley Frenchies and Alex in New York Frenchie World, or Frenchie World New York.
Alex Lee.
Alex Lee. So, I mean, to me, the whole situation just really, at that point, just kind of went downhill for me. It kind of made me step back and think, like, I thought things were different, and then for this to happen like this, it bothered me, honestly. It bothered me.
So why did y'all involve him in the second Frenchie Bowl?
Well, all this is happening after Frenchie Bowl. 2 has already been established. So once 1 went by, it was still good. We gave him the benefit of the doubt and said, we're going to try it again and see how things go. And then.
So how did the second Frenchie Bowl go? Was there anything wrong with the booze? So did he do good? Like, how did that work out?
I mean, honestly, in reality, I don't want to put nobody on blast, but it's the facts are the facts. And Al Boza and me combined probably sold 70% of those booths. And not taking nothing away from Alex or George. I'm just being realistic. Like, statistically wise, numbers do not lie. There's no question. Al has everything documented.
You and Al actually was going to all the other dog shows to make sure that you had everybody there and involved.
We made sure, and people know.
And a lot of money were invested.
People see me everywhere. You can ask. That's one thing about me. You can ask about me from here to each way, the West Coast, the East Coast, because I've been everywhere, you know what I mean? And it's Frenchie Bowl everywhere we go. And like you said, we're at a show every weekend. Again, because I shoot and I film. Either I'm working the show and we kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and we'll say, okay, you're working the show. I will be there to support the show, which he always does. Or he'll
out of his own pocket.
Out of his own pocket. Or he'll be there promoting Frenchie Bowl out of his own pocket. It was never Frenchie Bowl paid for anything. It was just him doing this he wanted to do this for the show. So that was another thing that kind of bothered us towards the end, because a lot of people questioned it. People were telling us, hey, why is it always just you and Al? That's just the reality of it. We never discredited nobody because that was the situation. That's just the reality. But when people started asking us, it started making us think, like, why is this fair? We put we're in the same situation as everybody else, but we're doing a lot more than because Al basically takes care of all the accounting, everything, from the time booths are being sold, and Al takes care of also contracts, anything with the venue. He's in contact with taking care of the things. There's a lot of stuff that, again, people don't know. There's a lot of things that you have to get to clear for the show, So licensing stuff, permits, stuff that has to happen. And Al's taking care of all that while we're selling the booths. And Al's role, as when we came on, I feel like Al's role was kind of do the books, help with the books, because he didn't have as much motion, and us 3 together could kind of pull this event like crazy. But then statistically, when I look at last year's numbers, Al's like this right behind me. And I'm like, to me, it just don't make sense. It's not making sense. So I addressed it to Al and said, hey, I appreciate what you're doing, bro, but respectfully, it's not adding up. Like, others need to kind of step it up a little bit. And I feel like that'll help take the event to the next level where we really want to get this event. Because we always thought from the beginning, we thought this thing was going to be worldwide, big, huge, nothing small. And again, when I look at the numbers, it's just not adding up.
So during this time, you started investing in dogs with George, or like, how did y'all's relationship grow outside of just the Frenchie Bowl?
So basically, when we were going to do when we started with Frenchie Bowl, we became friends quick. Just coincidentally, we stay in the same area. So because we stay in the same area, We were meeting a lot on a daily basis, just kind of hanging out, just doing daily things. I was actually doing a lot of filming for My Breeder's Life. That was another thing that came about outside of Frenchie Bowl. I was shooting a lot of the My Breeder's Life stuff. Now you may not see a lot of it, and that's another issue because it came down to where I was never compensated for anything I shot for My Breeder's Life. There was, I think, one time, I got it here on my phone too because there's a lot been going on, but I can tell you right now, I think it's like 8 to 10 shoots that I've shot for My Breeder's Life. I probably only got compensated for one, and that was a breeding that happened right here.
And a lot of people don't understand that he does charge a few $1,000s for his stuff.
Yeah, and that's another thing that came to the light. So in all this situation, before we even get to anything else, it coming to the light that I was providing a service, my video service, and people were paying him, but I never got compensated. So I questioned that, and he denied it and said, "No, I did pay you a couple of times, but again, I've got everything written down. I got everything documented. All the times I've shot for him. Out of the 8 to 10 times I've shot for him, I got compensated once, which was $400. $400 for a daily rate. Everybody knows that my daily rate is way higher than that. I charge more than that to shoot a dog show. So if I'm shooting with you all day, I just took it and was like, okay."
But you were using it as a promotion for yourself as well?
I was basically, yeah, I felt like I was being told that
You're helping My Breeder's Life grow.
that we were gonna basically put in the work, get this established, and then at the end we were gonna all eat. So yeah, I felt like I was just being a team player. I was like, whatever we need to do, let's do it. You know, I'm all about it. But it got to where it was continuously, and then after I'm shooting the My Breeder's Life stuff, it got to where I was shooting stuff on the side, like personal stuff, breedings and stuff like that, which was one of the times I got compensated. But when I started shooting that stuff, and it's content for My Breeder's Life, but me, I started feeling like it was more personal. I started feeling like that's not what I was there for. I was there to shoot My Breeder's Life content, as going to people, doing interviews, telling people about what they had going on, but not the personal stuff. That wasn't my objective when we first, that wasn't what we agreed upon.
Because you weren't his personal videographer.
I wasn't his personal videographer, but it turned into that. It turned into a certain amount of occasions, again, about 8 to 10 times that I went and shot personal stuff for him that I never once got compensated for. The My Breeder's Life stuff that I shot with, the big one that y'all see shot online, that's Aaron J. That we went to Dallas. I never got compensated for that. The stuff that you see, that My Breeder's Life, that the footage that was from the Tampa show that he had, I never got compensated for that. A lot of my footage and hard work got used, but I never got compensated for nothing.
And your name wasn't even put out there either.
It was always My Breeder's Life. It was never, I never asked for that exposure. I was always, again, being a team player, saying, let's put My Breeder's Life. I was never worried about my personal brand. I was saying, let's do whatever we can to accelerate the team.
So back to you see y'all bought dogs together, or y'all,
So that, yeah.
outside of just the Frenchie Bowl, y'all have other business together?
No, we don't have other business together. But so what happened is, again, just like the van, when the ideas got to talking about last year when we had Frenchie Bowl, I met, there's a lady there, and her name is Mila. I met Mila. She had the first velvet in the United States. She had Pickle. She brought Pickle last year, which Al got her too, another one of his booths sold, but she brought Pickle to Frenchie Bowl last year, the first Frenchie Bowl. When I saw Pickle, I was amazed by him. I was blown away by his coat, by his texture, by his look overall, and I got to talking to Mila, and next thing you know, we started running some numbers. I was blown away by what she was telling me the dog stud fee. She was telling me at the time her dog stud fee was $20,000. I was like, 20,000 for a stud fee, that's mind blowing. She's like, yeah,
And even the Rojos were like 10,000 at that time.
everything was like 10 at the time. When she told me 20, I was like, wow, that's
It's
far away
double for
from
sure.
almost triple what the average stud fee was at the time. So it kind of caught my attention, and I was like, what is the velvet? She started telling me about it. Well, after Frenchie Bowl, me being who I am, we sit in the van. We're all talking as a team, and I bring up the velvets. I was like, the velvets were cool. George was like, I didn't really see it. So I tell him to give him the rundown on the velvets, basically start talking to the velvets. Again, we live up the street. So after Frenchie Bowl, we come back. In the next few weeks, we're in conversation about these velvets. I'm telling him, hey, I talked to Mila. She's telling me that her dog's 20K. Like, that's mind blowing. Have you heard about these velvets? And he was like, nah. Like, he didn't really believe me at first. And then something got posted on social media. I don't know whether it was a media outlet or something got posted, but somewhere it came to the light that stud fees were 20K. And he called me and was like, hey, you weren't lying. These stud fees. I said, I told you, Next thing you know, a velvet pops up. I'm like, where did this come from, Again, one of my ideas or one of my directions that I was trying to take, and all of a sudden, and it was, what kind of bothered me is I never was given the opportunity to even
To be
say,
involved in it?
hey, do you want to be a part of this? It was just like, hey, a velvet's here. And I was like, hold up, whose is that? Oh, that's mine. Like, oh, okay.
But again, y'all are working together to try to build a brand of his brand.
Yeah, again, falls in the same stuff. So at the time, I kind of was upset about it, but me being the team player I am was like, you know what, it's cool. I'm not going to be upset about it. It is what it is. We'll take it like it goes and just keep moving, So I was personally upset and bothered by the fact that, again, like you said, I didn't get asked to be involved, but I wasn't gonna let it show. I just said, you know what, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. It is what it is. Stuff starts going, time starts coming down the line, and I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll just get my own velvet. So that's what drove me to get Blackjack. I just said, it was something I wanted to do. I'm going to go ahead and get a velvet myself. Mind you, when he had Smushy, when he first got the dog, I shot everything from the arrival.
So Smushy is the big rope?
Smushy is his velvet.
It's his velvet.
And that's the dog he co-owns with someone else. But when he got Smushy, I could show you, clips in my phone. I recorded that dog. He called me at like 10 at night again, just on some, hey, I got to get these dogs tonight. Can you film for me? Yeah, no problem. Jumped out of bed, 10 o'clock at night, go film, ride with him up the street and pick up these dogs. And I filmed the dogs on the arrival, from the arrival to him doing promo, to hit Smushy's first pictures, to Smushy's first promo videos. All that stuff that you were seeing was all from my camera. There might have been some shots from his phone, but there was a lot of the stuff that was from my personal shoots that I was just doing for him, just because I thought he was my boy at the time, and I thought we could help each other out. He's helping me push the event. I'll help him a little bit with the shoot. We're friends, so it didn't happen like that in the end. It just didn't happen like that, because I started shooting. Next thing you know, I'm shooting for Smushy, and then I'm shooting these breedings, and then it's coming like, all this personal stuff's happening, which is outside of my breeder's life. So another red flag starts coming up, and I'm just like, I'm gonna kind of fall back a little bit from shooting the personal stuff and just see kind of where this goes if I don't shoot the personal stuff, and see how it plays out. So the next time I was addressed for it, I just kind of was like, nah, and I could kind of feel the energy shift a little bit, because he's so used to me saying yes, But it is what it is. At that point, I had made up my mind that I was just going to veer a little bit and fall back and kind of refocus on myself, because I didn't feel like it was working out for me with the My Breeder's Life stuff.
So with the whole Smushy situation, I seen today that you had made a post about some money that was invested, because that's really a big deal all over the internet today.
Yeah, that's really a big deal. And what happened with that is basically we co-own. Okay, again, we're all partners with this dog, right? George comes to me and says, "Hey, I got a play where a guy from overseas wants to send me two huskies.
They're females?
Two husky females that were like 9 and 10 months, almost ready to come in their first heat at the time." I was like, "Okay, what does he want to do?" Basically, we cover the shipping, we get the dogs here, and then we're gonna breed them to Smushy, which was his velvet, and then we're gonna create husky lilac husky velvets. They're gonna be the first in the world. At the time, Al and I were like, it's a no-brainer, we'll just cover the shipping. We'll breed them to Smushy. Yeah, let's do it. So I called Al and we sat down and talked about it. And he was like, yeah, I'm down with it. We'll get the dogs here. And basically when we get them here, we'll send one to either Al's house or my house or whoever's house, and we'll work it out. And then when we breed the dogs, we'll work everything out. So he gets the dogs. Right away, one of the dogs comes into heat. Like as soon as we get the dogs, not even a week later. And at the time, he was telling us like the dogs, I think I said 9 or 10 months earlier. I think they were more like almost about to be a year. So at the time, when we got him, like right away, he was like, hey, one of the dogs is in heat. She's bleeding. Matter of fact, it was a dog that Al, so what happened is George ended up keeping one and Al took one to his house. As soon as Al got the dog to his home, he goes, bro, you're not going to believe this. This dog's bleeding. We're like, what? This dog's bleeding. Like that was fast. Something was kind of fishy about that. But the dog was in heat right away. Both of the dogs were in heat as soon as we got them.
It's really a blessing.
Yeah, it was. So we were like, okay, what are we going to do? Let's breed them to Smushy. Well, it comes time to do the breeding to Smushy. And then he comes to tell us, hey, after talking to my partners, because he co-owns Smushy, I think there's, don't get me quoted on this, but I think there's 2 or 3 other people. Two or three total on this. I think it's him and another person, maybe a third person that may be involved. But anyway, he proceeds to tell me that the partners, they want to get paid for using Smushy. I was like, man, get paid. I thought we were just paying for this. In my head, I'm thinking this. I thought we were just paying for the shipping for the dogs to get here. Now we got to pay for Smushy's fee. We co-own the dog together. And I was like, all right, well, what are you thinking? We sat on it that night. He texted me the next morning and was like, bro, how much do you think? What's fair? And I said, it's business. Don't short yourself. If your partners are asking for it, whatever they say, I don't want you to tell them, give us a deal or none of that. Like, I just want it to be paid. I don't want no, hey, we gave you a deal or to run into any problem. So let's just pay whatever they're asking. He calls me back like not even an hour later and says they want $10K for the first one and $8K for the second one. So I was like, $18K? Wow, that's a lot of money. That's
especially thinking it was going to be free.
After the fact, we thought we were only going to pay the $8,000 to get which that's another thing too. I've got plenty of dog ship here from overseas, and I know for a fact it don't cost no $8,000 to get 2 dogs here. I'm sorry, it don't. For anybody that wants to know that, it don't. I promise you, you're looking at like 25 to 3K, and that's just the reality of it. So me being that I knew that was another red flag.
But y'all knew that it was worth it because these are huskies.
Yeah, they're huskies. So we were like, let's do it. You know what? We'll pay the fee. No hesitation. At that point in time, George had actually owed Frenchie Bowl because when it came time for him to get Smushy, he messaged me and said, bro, I don't have the money for it. I'm in a situation. I need some help. Can you lend me some money to get Smushy? I said, you know what? How much is it? It was $8,000. I said, you know what? I got you. No question. I said, 8,000. Mind you, all we have been doing is Frenchie Bowl together. You know what I mean? Like people would probably, the average person is probably like thinking, what are you doing? You're crazy. This is your fault. But I just felt like that relationship was there. I felt like we were past that. Like we had a business relationship established that
And a personal relationship.
And a personal relationship on top of that. So I didn't even question. I just said, you need 8 bands, bro. 8K, I'll do it.
And y'all do that for several people. I know some other people y'all have also helped as well.
For sure. And that's just us, you know. And at the time, I didn't tell George. Like, the reality of it is, I didn't even tell George that I was going to ask Al. But me and Al have a separate relationship that where I called him and said, hey, George is in a situation. I'm going to lend him some money. And Al said, okay, well, just pull it out of Frenchie Bowl instead of pulling it out of your pocket. That's Al just being the person that he is. Like, he just said, just pull it out, bro, and we'll pay it back. You know, as soon as he gets it, we'll pay it back to Frenchie Bowl. No big deal. So we did that. So he owed, for months, he was owing $8,000 to Frenchie Bowl. So until the time came, this was probably 6 months later, 5 months later, 4 to 6 months at least later, when the time came up when we're going to breed the Huskies. And now it's going to be $18,000 for that. So it got flipped to, okay, well, let's take the $8,000 off that I owe Frenchie Bowl, and then y'all just pay the difference, the 10 grand. Well, when we got to thinking about the 10 grand, I was like, hold on, there's some other things that George owes for. George was like, what are you talking about? Well, again, Al's the accountant. He keeps everything. Al pulls it up and it's like, there's like 4 or 5 booths that said they paid you direct, and we don't have none of that. So we calculated that up at the time, and that, I got it right here, that right there, that right there was $37.50 is what he owed. And he's saying the $18,000 was never paid, but I could show you. You could see it right here. You see the $18,000 minus the $10,000 equals $8,000. Frenchie Bowl business. You see Mosley. You see Al in the group. You see that George wrote this. This is George. He's telling you the whole math right here. The 18 minus the 10, which he owed, and then the 8,000 again minus the 3,000. This is what he owed for the boosts that paid him direct. So he was in the negative at that point. So he was like, we're gonna wash basically everything he owed, which came out to like 11 grand total. So after 11 grand, we only owed 7 grand for the 2 breedings. He was like, all right, well, we just paid him the rest, right? Never thought anything about it. We paid him.
You have proof of that?
Yeah. Let me show you that too. You can see, because this right here is basically Frenchie Bowl. Mm-hmm. And you'll see the 8 grand deduction. If you take that from that, it's gonna show you. Again, this is sent from Al, which is the accountant for us, and he'll show you everything. There's another 3,000 sent to George Mosley. And
this is for the stud fee?
Same thing, 31.75. Like, so we sent him the rest of the money, thinking, okay, everything's cool now. One of the females didn't take. One of the females did take. Okay, that's cool.
And which female took? The one that he had or the one that Al had?
The one that he had.
Okay.
The one that he had took.
So he's the one with the puppies.
So he has the puppies again, which again.
But they're all y'all's.
They're all of ours, mm-hmm. Which we've only seen pictures maybe 2 or 3 times. Maybe give him 5 times. He sent us pictures, but little small pictures we've seen here and there. Again, we don't know how many are there. We know that there was 7 in the litter. We've never seen how many there are now. We don't get no updates. We don't get anything.
And B, you paid for the stud fee on the dog that he has.
On the dog that he has, you know, and that's where we were kind of like, after we paid it, you know, we paid it like nothing. But then after we paid it, Al and I were like, man, this is kind of, you know, this shit ain't really adding up. We paid the stud fee and he owns the dog, you know, with us. We co-own the dog together. And he has a female. That's like me and you owning a dog together, and you saying, okay, Marcus, now we're going to, so-and-so's in heat and we're ready to breed her. And I got this, we're going to use Blackjack. Okay, Tracy, well, you pay me 10 grand. Like.
And you have the female.
And I got the female, you know.
Yeah, so.
Like, it just doesn't work like that. Nowhere does it ever work like that. Never have I I mean, I'm not even a big person on co-owns. I have few co-owns that I've done like here and there that are like people that I really, really know. But this isn't something I do all the time. And this is the reason for situations like this. When you give people the benefit of the doubt and trust the situation, look where I'm at now. I'm in an upside down of, but this is where it gets crazy. After we pay the 18K, things go by. Okay, we're cool. We paid that. Well, now, when things start getting closer to Frenchie Bowl, there's a few people that owe a balance, and they're all Georgia's people. So we're in this group message. We have a Frenchie Bowl group message. We're shooting every day to say, hey, this is who owes, this is who owes. Well, when it comes down to 3 or 4 days before Frenchie Bowl, there's only 5 people left on this list, and they're all Georgia's. So we're like, hey, we need to really get this money, where you reach out to so-and-so. Well, the lady that he co-owns Smushy with messaged me and was like, I reached out to her about her balance, and she proceeds to tell me Georgia's taking care of my balance. I think she owed for like half of her booth. So I hit up Al and I was like, hey, do you know anything about this? He's like, no, I really don't. So I hit George and I'm like, hey, Tammy's saying you owe for her half. And he gives me a story of, no, I'll talk to her. At that point, there was another red flag to us. Like, why is Tammy telling us that George owed for, or George was going to cover it, and now it's just not paid? So it came down to like 2 days before Frenchie Bowl, and it still wasn't paid. We're like, man, something's funny about this situation. So at that point, I had already told Al, in my mind, when I see Tammy, which is his co-owner, at Frenchie Bowl.
Co-owner of which one?
Of Smushy.
Okay.
I wanna have a conversation with her and ask her, does she personally have knowledge about this 18K that we spend on these 2 stud fees? Is she aware of this at all? Because there's so many red flags being thrown at this time that I don't know what to think. We never get to talk to Tammy at Frenchie Bowl. Like 2-3 days later, I told Al I'm a messenger. I want to have a conversation with her. I messaged Tammy and said, hey, is there a few questions I could ask you? She said, sure, no problem. I told her straight up, I said, Tammy, we bred the Smushy twice. We paid $18K for the 2 breedings. Are you aware of any of this? She straight up told me no. She's like, no, I'm not aware of this. And I'm like, what? You don't know about the $18,000 that we paid?
That you actually, I had asked him and he said that his partners for sure needed.
For sure. And that's the only reason that we ended up paying for the stud fee, because you
didn't want any issues with the partners.
We didn't want issues with the partners. And he told us, again, the same thing. I'll show you proof. Like, Tammy's telling. So what I did is, after that fact, I messaged, when it comes to the light, I ended up saying, okay, well, Tammy, if you're okay with it, I'm going to put you in a group message with George, and I'm going to question it. She said, yeah, that was fine. So I put them in a group message and said, hey, Tammy, we paid $18,000 for the stud fee. We bred the one took. The other one didn't take, so we need a repeat for that one. But are you aware of any of this? Nope. She wasn't aware of nothing. So I'm like, hold on, why did we pay you $18,000 to use a dog on our females that we co-own, and now your partner's telling us that they have no knowledge about this $18,000 that we sent? There's nothing that you could tell me that's going to justify at this point in time that what you were doing is right. You can't tell me nothing that, oh, I was going to tell her later, or I was going to do this. That's not right, bro. You don't withhold, especially $18,000. That's a lot of money for us to spend. And
he didn't really invest anything in those females.
He didn't put nothing in the females because we paid for it all out of Frenchie Bowl. We paid for the $8K for them to get here. Again, $8K for them to get here because the shipping. But again, that shipping is like $4,000. We paid $8K for 2 females to get here. And then he didn't pay for anything else. That was all covered out of Frenchie Bowl. Then when the stud fees came, we paid the $18,000. That got paid right to him. So he took off the $11,000 that he owed the 8 for Smushy, and then plus the 3 for the balances, took all that off, and then we paid him the difference. He must have pocketed that because his partners know nothing about it.
And what about these puppies?
The puppies we still don't know anything about. We still have no clue to this day. The deal was that there's another partner. That's another thing. There's another co-owner in these Huskies. There's a person from overseas that sent these dogs, and we talked to him, and we're getting his side of the story. And again, his story is not matching up with what George told us. When these dogs got here, we were like, this is not the quality that we want. This is not what we're trying to breed. This ain't. He was like, oh, it's first in, this is the first in the world.
So
the
of course
DNA,
it's not going to be all the way there.
So it's not going to be all the way there. We took his word, half-assed all the vision, but even when the puppies came out, I was just like, man, to this day, there's nothing that I really want to, that I see that I really want to promote to my audience. It's not nothing that I like.
So did you ask George to make it right? Did you ask George to do anything? And
yeah, so what I did is when I messaged him and told him, I just said, hey, the 18K, she knows nothing about. He proceeded to tell me that Tammy does. He's like, Tammy knows about everything. But again, Tammy says she don't know about none of this stuff. I mean, it's in black and white, a lot of this stuff, And then on top of that, I've done a breeding with him. Because the dog didn't take, I did another breeding with him to my female. To the one that didn't take, I asked George and Al, said, hey, my female's coming in heat. I got another female coming in heat. Can we use that credit towards this? Al was like, yeah, I don't got a female in heat. Use it, George said the same thing. But his first question was, how are we going to work this out? I was like, Al said it was okay. He said he don't have a female coming in heat, so he said it was cool, just use it. As long as you're okay with it, we'll just use the credit and be done with it.
because you paid for it.
Because we paid for it already.
It wasn't like it was a deal on that.
Yeah, it's not a deal.
Out.
Yeah, it wasn't a deal on that. So again, we used it. We used the breeding, and now it's time to register the puppy. I reach out to him and I'm like, hey, we need to register this puppy. I need to register. Give me Smushy's info. He's like, oh, no, things have changed. Basically, you switched up on me, and, there's a lot of things that I don't agree with. So basically, now proceeds to tell me, after we've done the breeding, I'm not going to give you your paperwork until you sign a contract. I'm like, sign a contract? At this point, we've already done the breeding. I asked you for a contract in the beginning. You couldn't provide one. Now, because all this happens, I feel like because I've reached out to Tammy and all this has come to the light, I feel like he's holding that against me business-wise, when realistically, regardless of what all that happens or what we disagree on, business-wise, you were paid for the stud fee. You should simply sign off on that breeding. Simple. There's no reason why you should be withholding that.
In the state of Texas, you don't need a written contract. A verbal contract is the same.
For sure. And that's the thing. Like, again, I got all kind of pictures and notes and stuff in my phone to where it shows everything that I'm talking about, Tammy says right here, well, it's out in the open. I tell her I was honestly surprised to hear you had no clue about the 18K. She says, well, it's out in the open now. Hopefully it gets taken care of. Soon you can get your litter registered. Again, agreed. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. This is his partner, and not only that, when this situation comes out, I'm like, I get to thinking, I get to rewind it in my mind, and I'm like, you know what? There's a couple of times, like when Wyatt, which is Tammy's son, his co-owner, has come to Houston. I filmed for him. Then we went to Miami to the Gone Viral show, and we paid for Wyatt's room. I wonder, is there more to this story? So I addressed Tammy about it, and she's like, yeah, you know what, Marcus? The time that Wyatt came to Houston to check out the van and see Smushy for the first time, I paid George $625 for your services. Did you ever get that? I said, nope, I never received that. She's like, well, George told me that Preston was X amount. He paid him, and you were $625 for the day, and he paid you. And I said, no, I never received any money for that. So I asked George about it. I'm like, you never paid me for this, and she's telling me that she paid you. He was like, yeah, that's one of the times I gave you money. And I'm like, no, I remember specifically when we did when you gave me money. It was when we did a Chun-Li breeding. August did the breeding. We did it right here in the shop. And Chun-Li showed up. And matter of fact, I think Chun-Li has like a messed up leg, or the dog that they bred had like a broken leg or something. And I was kind of like, they're breeding the dog, you know, she has a broken leg or something. But anyways, that was the time that he charged that guy to shoot, and that's the time that he broke me off. But he never paid me from when I shot for Tammy. Then I said, okay, when we went to Miami, did you pay for anything? She said, yeah. Matter of fact, I paid for Wyatt's room, and I paid for $500 on the booth. I said, $500 on the booth? That's crazy, because Frenchie Bowl paid for the booth. How did you pay $500? And she was like, wow. And then she's like, yeah, and I paid for Wyatt's room. And I'm like, well, that's funny again, because Frenchie Bowl paid for Wyatt's room. So now when I begin to tell him all this in the group, he goes back to trying to justify. But she's telling me again, yes, I paid $500 for the booth at the Miami show. I was paid. She says, I got you. I'm definitely surprised by all of this. You know, she was blown away too. And I feel sorry for Tammy, because she's now caught in the middle of this. And mind you, I want to make it clear that Tammy has nothing to do with the business. She's in the same situation as me, being caught off guard and not knowing about the 18K. So the dirty stuff or anything that he's done, that has nothing to do with Tammy. She's a good lady. She's a good business lady, and I've never known her to do any bad business. So I feel like it's unfair for her to be even put in this situation. And then in conversation with her, I don't even want to put nobody's business out there. But when I talk to her, she's telling me certain situations that I'm just like, that's not adding up. That doesn't add up, you know? Soon in time, everything will come to the light. Everything will come to the light. But I guarantee it that on our side, when I say our side, on my side, Frenchie Bowl, whatever we're coming from, there's never been any bad business. We got everything documented. Everything has been paid for. We never shorted anybody. We always paid anything that needed to be paid, and we don't really have anything. I mean, people know me. I have a known name in the industry. I've been doing this for 3 to 4 years, to enough to where people know who I am. And you can ask anybody I've ever done business with. Nobody's ever will associate with me with bad business.
So you asked George, like, did you ask him to reconcile it and fix it, or?
Basically, what I just told him, I just basically questioned him about it. And then when I questioned him about it, he proceeded to kind of, you know, pop off and go his way. And I was just like, all right, are you going to register the litter? Basically, at this point, I was like, I've given you the van. I've already given you the van. He's like, giving you LOL, basically proceeds to tell me that there's no way I could have given him the van
Because it was his.
When it was his, which he paid for, which again, half of my sponsors paid for. But he says there's no way that I could have given him the van. And
again, this is an older van. This isn't like a brand new van off the lot.
Yeah, this isn't a brand new van off the lot. This is a 2013
that sponsors paid for.
That sponsors paid for. And that's all it was. The sponsors paid for it. And there was another thing is too, like even with that band stuff, the sponsors were supposed to get a year of it. And there might be probably now that, okay, yeah, they're left on there for them to get their exposure. But in reality, that band was in the shop for almost till Frenchie Bowl 2 happened.
And it was supposed to be going to the My Breeder stuff, being involved in everything.
It was supposed to be everywhere. It was supposed to be at a lot of things, but it wasn't ready. It was, again, George's person that was fixing the van that I was just taking his word for, that the van would sit over there for 3 or 4 weeks and nothing would get done, and I would question it, and he would just proceed to tell me that either the guys said he's busy, he's not working on it, you know, little lies and shit that just came over time, just made me stop and think about the whole situation.
So what made you today come out and say the stuff that you said?
I mean, today, basically, I just want people to know the truth. I feel sorry for Tammy as a person, because I feel like, man, in this industry, it's already tough enough. It's already hard enough. People can say what they want. The market's not dead, or, you know, things are going great. But in reality...
And the Velvets are going really well right now.
The Velvets are going good.
That's what Smushy is.
Yeah. But in reality, people know the motion has slowed down a little bit. You know, things aren't really the same. So it's harder. It's a little tougher, you know, right now for things to happen. But you got to put a lot of grind into right now if you want to stay relevant in this market. You have to. And for me, it's just basically clearing my name with anything that has to do with anything negative, because Frenchie Bow is a brand, you know, and I everywhere I go, people know me, myself, Al, Alex, George, anywhere we are, like, I am Frenchie Bow. We are Frenchie Bow. So when I walk around, people see me as Frenchie Bow. They don't see me as Marcus.
You and Al both.
Yeah, they see us both like that. So I don't want my name to be attached to anything negative. I just ask for what's right, you know. The 18K, to me, again, when I found out that Tammy didn't know about it, that's not right to me. There's nothing that could justify from this point on that it's going to make it right. I don't even want the 18K back.
But you can't even get your litter registered.
Can't even get my litter registered right now.
And then the other female that you paid for, that's just like, you got to wash your hands of that too as well?
Got to wash my hands with that too. And then not only that, but don't forget the van. You know, that was another probably 10 grand. I would realistically say, because my sponsors probably paid like 8 grand or 10 grand or something. And then I probably put another 3 to 4 grand on top of that. So realistically, you're looking at about another 12 to 14 grand, you know, that I
took a loss on.
Just said, okay, you can have it. It's a lot of stuff, man. It's a lot of stuff. But again, in time, everything will come to the light. The truth will come out. There's a lot of stuff that was happening in the dark that is going to come to the light. A lot of people will see the truth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guarantee it. And Frenchie Bow 3 is still happening, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no, we know.
So that's not going, I want people to understand that Frenchie Bow 3 is not, I seen somebody being messy earlier on the internet already saying there's an issue and this and that. Like, we're business people. Al's a businessman, I'm a businessman.
And at the end of the day, other people's not even on the contract. It's just you and Al.
For sure. Al's half the CEO to Frenchie Bow as I am, you know. So when it comes down to it, it's either Al or me. So we'll sit back, reconstruct, reconfigure, and Frenchie Bow 3 will be the best Frenchie Bow you ever attended.
And George was already taking money, pocketing money from that bowl, so you can't really involve him in the next one anyways.
Yeah, that's another thing. You know, there's already people that telling me that they've paid for certain things that, how can he charge you for that? And he's not even a part of it yet, you know? But it is what it is. Again, everything I feel like in time is going to come to the light.
I think it's important for you to make sure that everybody knows to not send any more money that way for the Frenchie Bowl.
Yes, and that's another thing too. Anything to do with Frenchie Bowl, either me or Al Boza at this point in time, that's always been like that in reality, because Al's the accountant, and I run a lot of the stuff too, but Al, either it goes to him or I. There should never be any other payment that goes anywhere else. Even Alex knows as a partner, like Alex will tell you too, even when I get payments sent to me, when anybody gets payment, we shoot them straight to Frenchie Bowl. Yeah. Nobody shoots them directly to their account or any of that. We don't do any of that, besides the instances that were happening with him. And exactly why we don't do it is what happened. It caused a conflict, and into when we addressed it, it was like, oh, I don't owe that. And I was like, yeah, it's black and white. You know, I have it written down. There's not really a question. It's there.
So there's no way to reconcile with George?
I mean, at this point in time, I really wouldn't say that there's not a way, but I would be honestly looking at you to your face, lying to you, that I could tell you I could feel the same way that I ever did about him. And I'm not saying I can't forgive him, because I'm a man too, and but at the end of the day, I just don't feel like that was right. I don't feel like the 18K not being disclosed. I feel like the other stuff, there was little stuff here and there that wasn't disclosed, that I feel like us as partners, it should have been transparent.
And as a business owner, you really can't be involved in bad business.
I'm not going to be involved in bad business, and I won't. I won't be involved in bad business. I refuse to. And again, you can ask anybody that's ever done business with me. I stand on it firm that I don't do bad business. I never have, and I won't. It's not something the worst part about it is I feel, for Tammy. Because I'm like, this lady is knee deep invested in Smushy now. And now I even messaged her and said, hey, Tammy, out of respect for you, I don't even want to like put no media out, post nothing. And she was like, respectfully, whatever you have to do, I respect it. And I said, the sad thing is it's going to hurt you. I know you're invested in that dog. And if I say something, people are going to, but it is
Because
what it
nobody's
is.
going to want to use a dog that's papers going to get hung on.
Exactly. And not really necessarily papers hung, but just in general, nobody's going to really want to deal with this whole situation.
Well, if you can't register your litter, the papers are hung.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't register my litter. I don't know why that. I don't know why. And then that was another thing. I asked Tammy, was she on the paperwork? Tammy,
So he could do it right now if he wanted to.
oh yeah, he could do it simply, cause she told me he does got his AKC paperwork. So that's one thing that I think could be simply done, as far as signing. You know how it goes, registering a litter, real quick, real fast, and it's done. Like it shouldn't be long at all, and it could happen simply. And then we can go about our own ways. Like we don't have no reason to drag shit on. Let's just business-wise, let's
So
handle.
what did he say to you when you said that you were going to go public with it?
I never told him I was gonna go public with it. I just told him basically that if he didn't want to register my litter, that the next thing I would do is take legal action, which is go to court. Which I'm like, we're gonna really waste time and go to court for all this shit when you really just gotta sign off on this. The litter has been paid for. I don't understand. His partner is telling him, like Tammy's telling him right here in the thing. She's like, George, pay for this. Sign off on his litter. Marcus, I have asked for the registration to be completed. I'm sorry this is happening. Really a bad situation. George, please register the litter, as this is the right thing to do at this point. Like his own partner is telling him that she agreed.
That hasn't even received any money.
That hasn't even received any money. She ain't even been paid for the stud fee, and she's still telling him, George, if he paid you for it, you got to register the litter. That's the only right thing to do.
And you have proof in there that you...
And there's proof
You just
right
showed me
there. I just showed you all the
money
proof
transfers.
right there, all the transfers. And then on top of that, there's again right there where it says this is in Frenchie Bowl, and it tells you right here $8,000 for Smushy. This is what he owed. He's again owing for Boost $1,500, $375, $2,000. A lot of these people were paying him direct, and we weren't ever seeing none of it. He don't get me wrong. It's not like he didn't withhold it, because in the end he did pay for it.
Out of his portion
But
of
it's
the
like,
principal.
but it's like they paid you in March. We didn't get paid for it till October. Why? Why is that? Why did you withhold this money for 8 to 9 months or 6 months, or I don't know, however long it was? Why did you withhold any of it? It was never just boom, get it sent right to me. And Al would always have to pull teeth like, George, can you please send the money? Can you send the money? I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. It was always a hassle.
And you would think somebody like George wouldn't have no problems with money.
I would think
That's
so.
why people trust him.
Yeah, and there's there's another situation where people are kind of aware of, where we were supposed to get a panda dog. You might have seen the panda. I don't know if you knew Al at that time, but we were supposed to get the panda French bulldog that was a mini that was from China. And we were supposed to get that dog at the time. At that time, when we came up with the figures, Al sent his portion to George. I never sent George no money because the dog never got delivered. But what Al was sending him was basically supposed to be for the deposit for the dog. Then we come to find out, like 4 weeks later, that our deposit never got put down. We're like, hold on, what do you mean our deposit? The Chinese guy knows both of us. So he reaches out to me and tells me, hey, do y'all still want the dog? I'm like, yeah, we want the dog. He's like, well, there's been no deposit. I'm like, what do you mean? We sent 25 grand, which I say Al sent 25 grand to George, but Where's that? Oh, no, I've never been sent that.
What?
Never been sent that. So I called Al and I was like, bro, you're going to be upset. He's like, what? I said, you ain't going to believe this. I just talked to China and they said they haven't received our deposit. He's like, what? I said, yeah. And the worst part about it is I saw that CEC Bullies posted it after they posted, we're getting this dog. And I was like, how are they buying our dog? I asked the dude from China, I'm like, what happened? He's like, he never put the deposit. So he's like, they made an offer and bought the dog. I'm like, damn, that's terrible. So this whole time that we're thinking we're getting this panda, we think that it's secured, we're promoting it, we're taking lock-ins at this time.
And you put 25,000 down.
Al did. 25,000. We're taking lock-ins on this dog already, telling people that we're going to get this dog. We're getting this. George is taking lock-ins with us. You ain't never gave the dude the deposit and you're putting us in this situation. So then when it comes out, I reached out, like I told you, I reached out and asked him. He straight up told me, nah, George never put the deposit. That's why y'all didn't get the dog.
And what did George say?
So George was like, I'm going to be honest with you. I've got a relationship with this dude for so long and bought so many dogs from him that I've never sent him a deposit.
But where did the $25,000 go?
I was like, okay, I feel that, but you know, the deposit was to secure the dog so we didn't lose it. Not saying that you couldn't have, but look now, the dog's being sold to somebody else. He's like, yeah, but it never worked like that. I said, okay. That night goes by, the next day, like nothing. I just call him and say, hey, that 25, go ahead and send that back to Al. You know, we didn't get the dog, so he needs his 25 grand back. That 25 grand, he can sit right back.
Did he see any of it?
He saw it, but it probably took like a month. But like, why? Why it take a month? All of a sudden, you're riding around in a new Benz. All of a sudden, you're going
And
to...
y'all lost a dog and had to return down deposits and all that?
All of a sudden, you're going to Vegas. A lot of stuff starts happening. You're telling me you're in a bind, but all of a sudden, you're buying all kind of stuff. Coincidentally. And then coincidentally, Al, like I said, Al got his money back, but maybe, who knows how long, maybe 2-3 months later. If you just had the money and it was sent there and you never sent it, why couldn't you just send it right back?
And if he's doing this with his partners, can only imagine what's happening in the industry.
This is like I consider my boy, like I consider family. Like I'm telling you, like not even no lie. I even made a list. I even made a list right here that shows all the times that I shot for him. Because I was like, man, when it comes down to it, I want to know, you know? And it shows you all the times that I shot for him. Boom. Everything's marked down again. It shows when he paid me again, like I told you earlier, the $400. That was it. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's probably 2 more that ain't on there, you know? A lot of stuff that was happening. And then come to find out, on top of all that stuff, the videographer that he uses, Preston, for My Breeder's Life, he was supposed to shoot for us last year at Frenchie Bowl. Well, we never got the footage. So I'm like, hey, George, what's up? Well, when he keeps giving me the runaround, I reach out to Preston because we're both videographers and we're cool. And I'm like, hey, what's up? Where's our footage from last year? He's like, I wasn't shooting for y'all last year. Well, we paid Preston $1,000 last year at a Frenchie Bowl. What do you mean you weren't shooting for us? He said, nah, George told me I was just shooting for him. Mm-hmm. So,
but he is actually a partner with the Frenchie Bowl.
Yeah, so we paid Preston to shoot for you? Like that don't make no sense. And then when I asked George about it, he's like, nah, he goes on to lie to me and tell me, nah, I made it clear. Preston know he was shooting for us. He didn't know I had just spoke to Preston. I'm like, well, I just talked to Preston. He told me different. That was another $1,000. On top of that, this year for Frenchie Bowl, we got a song made. We were supposed to get a song made that was for Frenchie Bowl. Killer Callion was doing the song. George told us the song was going to be $1,500. He told us that Killer Callion wanted $3,000. For us to send him 3, that basically $1,500 was going to be for this Frenchie Bowl song, and the other $1,500 he was going to pay because he was getting the song done for a limited edition. When it comes down to it, the song gets made for Frenchie Bowl, and it makes it sound like Mosley's Frenchies is throwing Frenchie Bowl. It says Mosley's Frenchies in the building and Mosley's Frenchies this, and it just barely mentions Super Spoiled and Exquisite, but it's all surfaced around Mosley, and that's not who's throwing Frenchie Bowl. It's us as a team, and I feel like that wasn't right. So I called him out on that too, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" You know, the whole song is towards this one. Well, when I ask him about the other 1,500, he then goes back to tell me now that wasn't the agreement. Killer Calion charged us $3,000 for the song that he did, and he paid an additional $1,500 to him. Me coming from the music industry and knowing these artists, like, where's my phone at, man? Me coming from the music industry and knowing these artists, like, you see it, Killer K. Like, these people are in my phone. These rappers, this is where I come from, the music industry. Killer Calion is a person I know on a basis. Like, I know him, and you can't tell me that we paid $3,000 for that because he don't, you know, that's not his fee. So you charged us again.
But you paid $3,000 for a George Mosley promotion.
We paid $3,000, and he got his limited song first, and then came down to where we got, and we didn't get our Frenchie Bowl song till like 4 months later or something, 3 months after we paid him. Like, what are we gonna do with it now? We paid him in February or March so we could push this all year. Now we got it, like we got the song in, like, I don't know, maybe June or July or something. Just, it was months after we paid for it. But again, it was all focused towards George, like he was throwing the show. And it was only one verse. I'm like, bro, we paid $3,000 for one verse from Killer Calion. Like, that just
It didn't make sense.
didn't add up to me at all. But again, just little things overall started coming to the light that we just. So again, at this point, I can't say I'm not upset because I'm bothered by the situation. But at this point, I don't want nothing. I just really like the sad thing is at the end too, when it came down to throw Frenchie Bowl, there was still stuff after selling all the booths, after all the stuff, because anybody can see when you went to Frenchie Bowl, we went all out this year. We paid 20 grand probably for extra stuff, but there's stuff that we put on that we had to come out of. When it came down to the day before Frenchie Bowl, we were still $18,000 short for everything that we needed to be paid. So guess what happened? Al calls me. Al says, hey, I'll put 10 on my credit card and you put 8 on yours and we'll make it happen. Never did we ask George or Alex or anything to even put anything on it, but we did, after it was paid, we did tell them, hey, look, Al had to pay 10, I had to pay 8, so we're 18K out of pocket. First things first, that's gonna get paid back. But I feel like at that point in time, it should have been like, I even addressed it and said, hey, I feel like maybe somebody should pay Al 5 and somebody pay me 4, and we kind of, that way we're all 4 in, you know, at that time. That never happened. Nobody had the money for that. So we just said, okay, we'll go with it. We'll pay ourselves back after. Well, Frenchie Bowl happens, and guess what? There's 18K that's still tied into those Huskies. So we're thinking, yeah, we didn't make no money, which we didn't really make money on Frenchie Bowl. We pretty much broke even this year because at the end of the day, we might have made 18,000, but that's exactly what's owed to me and Al. Al owes 10. I mean, we're owed Al 10 and 8 to mine. So that's another situation that just, I felt like us as a team, we should have all took that loss. And I told him, I even told him and Alex after the show, I said, hey, we're 18 grand in, the show's over. Al took a $10,000 loss, I took an $8,000 loss. Where we at now? They just both said, okay, like, it is what it is, so we can't pursue nothing else, you know what I mean? We just got to keep pushing. It is what it is. I just want the people to know I don't condone the bad business.
You don't want to be involved in that?
I don't think it's right, and I don't stand for it. And whoever I got to stand up to, whatever extent I got to go to make sure that this don't happen to nobody else, I'm going to stand for what's right. And it is what it is. People can feel have their opinion or feel what type of way they're gonna feel. But for me, I'm gonna stand for what's right.
And you know, if it's happened to you, it's happened to other people too.
Most definitely. And that's the thing. There's already been other people that I've been in contact with that
Say the same thing happened to them.
telling me the same similar situation has happened to them. So at the end
We
of
gotta
the day,
stop putting money into bad people's pockets.
we do, man, because there's a lot of good breeders. At the end of the day, there's a few good breeders. I mean, a lot of good breeders, but there's few bad. But stuff like that makes it bad for the industry. I just feel like,
People are scared to put money down.
and people look up to, like I said, I looked up to George. You know, I look up to him a lot. Like, I respected him a lot. There was times that I'm getting up at 5 in the morning to go do a shoot for him free all day that I would
Thinking y'all are all building a brand together.
thinking we're building a brand together, but I would charge somebody else, you know, crazy amount for that. Like almost probably $2K for the whole day that just
And
got
waking up at
pressed.
5.
Yeah. Not even my lunch got paid for. That's how weak it was. I even put that in perspective. I said, I ain't never been to a job, bro, where I've worked all day and then nobody's even offered to buy my lunch. Like, even you didn't even pay me $1, but you didn't even offer to buy my lunch. Stuff like that, I peep, you know what I mean? Like, it's not okay. I would have made sure that they were taken care of. Anybody that works for Frenchie Bowl, we make sure that they're taken care of, for sure. Like, I'm definitely not gonna do that.
Well, it was good talking to you, Marcus. And I'm gonna meet with George, and we'll get his side, and then we're gonna get everything together, and we'll get your information out there.
Most definitely.
Because I definitely feel like before any more money is exchanged in the industry, everybody needs to know and have their own opinions.
For sure. And I want to tell y'all, I thank y'all too, because I appreciate y'all. It's not even about picking sides, but just showing both sides, because there's always two sides to a story. And I'm not saying that my side is right, but I'm going to give you mine, and they can give you theirs, and then you can evaluate the situation.
Yeah, we're going to evaluate it together as well.
But yeah, Dog Culture TV. Make sure
Yes.
y'all tune in.
For sure.
That's all we gonna speak today is facts. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Like I know I have integrity.